Hello, and welcome back to another episode of our Gospel Love podcast. I am Caitlin.
I am Aramis.
And I'm Coach D.
And today we are getting back to our 10 secrets to being a better husband. We left off last week at number 3. So we'll just recap real quick. 1 through 3. We have identify as a lover.
This
Number 1.
don't count as my time.
Right.
Recap.
No.
Right.
Look, I ain't even hit play yet. Hold on. Identify as a lover. Define and describe what love is. And become a mature lover. So those are the first 3. If you did not catch those, make sure you tune in or just click the links. We have those below, 1 through 3. And today we're going to try to get through the rest. So
I don't know about that. We get through 5 through 7.
Wait, we got to do number 4.
4 through 6.
4. All right, we'll see what we could do. Well,
It's
what
a progression.
Right.
The first week we did this, we went through 1. Next week we went through 2. So you're working your way up. I see.
You're right. We should get through 3 today.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So number 4 is define and describe faith-based husbandry.
Yeah, I think it's important that we distinguish between the 2 types of husbandry. Without going too far into the whole 2 kinds of men in the earth, which produce 2 kinds of husbandries. It is that though. There's 2 kinds of men in the earth that God sees. Ones are the sons of God. The other ones are the sons of Adam. One are the spiritually mature, the spiritually alive. The other one's the spiritually dead. One is has a desire to love and function as God would have them to function in the earth. The other one don't have anything to do with God, right? The challenge, though, for believers, for the church is once we've gone from death unto life, once we've been delivered from the power of darkness and translated into the kingdom of His dear Son of light, now we have to transition between becoming the husband that's from the sons of God's side rather than the husbands that's functioned out of a dead man in Adam. Most of us have mixtures because of what we hear. Most of us sit under teaching and instruction and preaching and hooping and all the stuff we sit under. That's at best a mixture. And that mixture is probably 80-20 religion or unrenewed mind messages that's centered and rooted from the old man and not rooted or of the new man.
Right.
And so when we talk about faith-based husbandry, we're talking about new man husbandry. And versus old man husbandry. Most believers who should be functioning or doing husbandry from the new man are still doing it from the old man. Because the church has adopted the secular society's educational structure and how they've studied the deficiencies, the poor tendencies, the lack of the fallen man, and they've come up with antidotes and processes, and they've come up with analogies and analysis on what his problem is and what he's limited at doing. And they say, well, men can't do this, and women do this, and husbands do this, and this is how we're supposed to go, and you can't love like this, when really that's dead and over with. We have to look at what husbandry looks like from the new man perspective. That's what we're about.
Right.
Like if you want to be able to guarantee that. Hey, what's up, fam? Today's Winners One podcast is brought to you by our Coffee in the Morning Club. Listen, they say right now the divorce rate is anywhere between 58 and 62%, depending on the community or the culture you grew up in. But they say that rate is drastically reduced if you are a couple who finds a community of like-minded couples. We have a Coffee in the Morning Club marriage enrichment community of couples who are driven to have a faith-based marriage. This is a marriage that's based upon the principles that God ordained for marriage to be about. If you want your marriage to be drastically reduced from running into chaos, confusion, and trouble, you need to join this community. It is our Coffee in the Morning Club community that will enrich you and empower you and strengthen you to win and make marriage easy. Your marriage will be what God intended for it to be. You got to be functioning out of new man. Now, what new man, what new birth, what new creature comes with is new love. Well, let me back up. He comes with a new heart. He comes with new love. He comes with a new mind. He comes with a new language. He comes with new righteousness. He comes everything new. Right? Everything new. So when we talk about faith-based husbandry, we're talking about husbandry from the new man's perspective.
Right.
And that is a man commissioned to love his wife as Christ loved the church and lead her into the greatness of our salvation. That's how we define, because that's what sons do. I don't know for where the sons define things. That's why I'm always, y'all claim I be making up words, like it's a problem. But like all these words we use, somebody had to make them up, right? So sons define
Oh,
things.
no, some of the words you be making up though. We'll have to have a show on it.
Way outside of the English language.
Yeah.
It's incredible sometimes.
Yeah, it's new man language. All right,
Okay.
So but sons define. What's the first thing we see the Son of God doing? Adam. What's the first thing we see Adam doing?
Naming?
Defining.
Yeah.
Defining the animals. He's defining. He's naming things. He's giving things definition, right? So God would want us to define from the kingdom's perspective for secular society to see what faith-based husbandry is all about. And it starts with a faith-based approach to husbandry. And, you know, the challenge with that is we got to go back and we got to talk about what is new man's faith. See, Jesus brought it out when he says, have the faith of God, or the God kind of faith. Mm-hmm. Only the new man can have the God kind of faith. Unfortunately, you know, you don't want to make folks feel bad, but fallen men can't have the God kind of faith. I know they call it faith. It's really just mental assent. But the fallen man can't have the God kind of faith, right? So we got folks who are, you know, self-help gurus, motivational speakers talking about have faith. I don't know what they talk about, but it ain't the God kind of faith. It ain't the God kind. It's like it's really like mental assent mixed with something else. But the God kind of faith can only be operated in by the new man, because the new man is the only man that can receive and grow and consistently receive the word of God.
So really quick, what is the? Can you give an example to show the difference between the two?
Between what?
Between the God kind of faith and the mental ascension.
All right, so we'll start like this. So the mental assent, we'll talk about its origin. What's the origin of the God kind of faith? How does the God kind of faith come?
By hearing.
By hearing, right? The God kind of faith comes through hearing. Hearing is a law. Mm-hmm. So once we hear the word to the degree we need to hear the word, then the law of hearing is directly linked to the law of believing, the law of faith. So we hear our way into believing, right? A lot of times, according to secular society, it takes a person at least several times hearing something before they even begin to enter into the spirit of it, right? But what happens with what secular folk call faith, they hear something one time. They hear something, halfway hear it. And then they'll start saying, well, I believe that. Well, no, you don't believe it. You might agree with it mentally, but you don't believe, you ain't heard it enough to believe it.
Okay.
You haven't heard it. It's very rare. Like, I don't even know if it's possible for a person to hear something one time and have faith for it. That word faith comes by hearing. That's word plural in the Greek. It means hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing. It don't mean having heard once. Right? The Bible says God has spoken once. Yes, many times do I hear it. Right? We have to hear our way into believing. And that don't happen after hearing me talk about or share one sermon with you. Like, you got to hear something. You got to hear it. You got to immerse yourself into it. Really. Like, that's the idea of hearing. Hearing is an immersive experience. When you study the word hearing out, it means to give oneself over to like an audience. It's like going to an opera. Like, you don't listen or hear casually when you go to an opera. Right? You immerse yourself into the whole thing. It's like going to a ball game. Right? That's the example the Lord gave me. When I was studying that word here, and the thought came, he said, imagine what used to happen when you was at the football games, right? Like, those fans immerse themselves. It's an experience. It's not just a football game. It's an experience, right? That's the idea behind every NFL club, is to give you an experience that you want to come back for every time. So hearing is an experience. Like you gotta yearn to hear. Right. And so the difference between entering into the space of faith, it starts with hearing. Most folks aren't intense enough about hearing. They hear something one time, oh, I believe it. No, you don't. No, you don't. You think it. Now, how can I determine whether or not you believe it? Here's the other side of the difference. Here's the other side of the difference, is faith comes with its own language, right? That's what Jesus said. If you have the faith of God, ye shall say. You'll speak. This is what you'll say. Them folk who just mentally sitting, listen to what they say. Listen to how they talk.
Yeah.
They might tell you they believe the sky is blue, but then you'll hear them talking about, man, the sky ain't never blue. Man, the sky been great. They'll start talking against what they say they believe. They can't help it because they haven't entered into the spirit of faith. Then they don't have the language of faith, and so you could tell. I could tell by what's the difference is. Well, how'd you come about believing that? Well, I don't know. I just believe it. No, you think you just assent to it. We mix believing and thinking up all the time. Well, I believe this. No, you think that. Well, why you believe that? I don't know, because I believe. No, because you had to hear it. You had to hear it. And then on the other side of it is the language, what they say. If you don't enter into the spirit of faith, then you won't have the language of faith.
Right.
And we have to be able to distinguish between a husband has his language. His language is different because he's embraced the identity of a lover, and he's functioning from a faith-based perspective. When you function from faith, you see what's not been manifested yet. When you're operating in faith, you see. So you see in her what's not even been manifested yet. Now the challenge is to relate to her based off what's not been manifested, but you've already seen it.
Right.
So if she ain't responding to you the way she respond, how you address that will be dependent upon how you truly see her. How you truly see her. I have one of my husbands be calling me saying, well, she ain't this and she ain't. I said, man, don't stop saying that.
Right.
She is that. She might not be manifesting it right now, but that's who she is. One of our things we're gonna get to is to see her as God sees her. Number seven, yeah. See her as God sees her, as Adam saw his wife. Right. We have to see them. And one of my personal experiences is when I was reading Proverbs 31, and Sister Leslie wouldn't act like Proverbs 31 at the time. She was still, she had that Harvey up in her. She still had Harvey coming out. Folks still had Harvey coming out. But once I started reading, I got the Proverbs 31, and it's like the Lord gave me a vision of her face as I was reading it. It's like, this is her. This is my wife. Man, I got so excited. I started reading the Bible to her while she was asleep. I started talking to her, and I started praying in accordance to that, and then I started addressing her in accordance to that. So I began to relate to her as I saw her and as God sees her. And that's the difference in a husband walking in faith and fulfilling his husbandry responsibilities in faith, instead of, looking at how she's behaving and saying, you ain't this and you ain't that, and you ain't gonna never be this, and you always been this way. No. There ain't no faith in that. Ain't no faith in that.
Is the state, well,
Hey, what's up? Coach D here. Listen, I got something I need to say to you real quick. Listen, marriage is made for lovers. Now, once you understand that marriage is made for lovers, and you're not listening to them folks that keep saying you need more than love to make marriage work, you have to identify as a lover. Once you identify as a lover, now you got to learn what love is. Guess what? We have something for you that can help you understand exactly what love is in its most comprehensive nature. It's so much more than just an emotion, but you got to get the book to find out exactly what God's intent was for love and how it functions. Thanks. Get the book. God bless.
I'll ask you this. Is it the case that everything you hear makes its way into your heart?
No, I won't say everything you hear, right? I won't say everything we hear. I think what you hear in abundance or consistently, right? There's two components to getting something in your heart. First is hunger, like hunger. If you're hungry for something, you may be able to hear something once or twice, 3, 4 times, and it get in there.
Right.
Right? The second would be the ability to receive. So some stuff we hear, I ain't receiving that. The Bible says, receive with meekness the engrafted word.
Right.
Right? And all of that is connected to a heart. See, ears to hear is directly linked to a heart to receive. And if you don't have a heart to receive, then you won't have ears to hear. So everything we hear don't necessarily make its way down into our heart. Now, I think the things we hear, if we hear something that we don't want to hear, but if we hear it enough, it can make its way down into our heart. I know this sister, right? I know this brother and sister who was married, and the sister used to go home and visit her family. Now, she didn't want to talk like them or act like them or sound like them. But when she would come back, you could tell she had went to visit her family. Because she would sound like them.
Right.
She would talk like them. Now, she wasn't trying to hear that. She wasn't. But she heard it enough.
In abundance.
In abundance that way it got in her. Right? And so I think that's another aspect to it. Right? Okay. So what you hear from a quantity standpoint or from a quality standpoint, the quality speaks to the hunger and the desire to hear and the heart to receive, which then creates an ear to hear. Okay. But then on the other side, there's a quantitative aspect to it where you cannot want to be really care to hear something. But if you hear it enough, it'll come out of you.
Right. Right. So moving on to our next topic, our next secret, accepting the role designated to him by God.
Right.
That's number 5.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. Like these are secrets to being a better husband. And like, we all have the mindset to be better. I hope you do anyway. But accepting the role, most husbands refuse to accept the role. And the role we're talking about is, the first one is initiator. Like, whether we realize this or not, I can say this comfortably, that probably, I want to say 99.9% of things that happens in your household in some kind of way was initiated by you. Mm-hmm. Good or bad.
So true. So
yeah, she
true.
would agree with it. Yeah.
Of course.
So true.
Of course.
Good or bad.
I mean, because it is.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you can almost, like, I used to do this. I used to do this just to prove it out. When, in all of our years of coaching husbands and wives and marriages, I would, I'll call it a play this game for the sake of it. With husbands, and I would ask them questions. And well, this happened. Well, why did that happen? Well, I don't know. Well, did you do this? Well, or did you didn't do this? Well, no, I didn't. Well, if you had done this, and I could trace it back to something they did or didn't do. Right. That would have caused a different reaction from the spouse. Like that's the role that God has given us.
Right.
Right. That's the role that God has given us. I really believe, like, when Mrs. Adam failed, she was deceived, but I really believe when God was Adam, he's like, man, there was something he either didn't do or did that caused her to be in a position to be deceived. We don't know that, but I'm almost willing to bet my last dollar when we stand before Mr. and Mrs. Adam, I'm gonna say, bro, what happened? What happened?
Right.
Man, I should have did this. Right. I'm sure it's gonna come back to him some kind of. That's why God went to him.
Yeah.
Right. So the role of an initiator is what we have to embrace. Like, when I saw this, everything that went wrong in my household, even to this day, I say, Lord, I examine myself first. Was there something I could have said? Could I have said it differently? Could I have done this? What could I have done? And so before I go to address Sister Leslie or the children, I would be like, yo, listen, I take responsibility for you doing this.
Right.
Right. I take responsibility for doing it. Now, whether it may have been, my son not taking out the garbage. I take responsibility for it, right? Because somewhere in his life, I didn't let him know how important that was for him to take the garbage out.
Yeah.
To do what I asked you to do. Like, maybe I may have been too soft on him. I may have told him like 5 or 6 times. Like I trained him not to listen to me. Like when we tell our children 5 or 6, we train them not to listen to us the first time.
Right.
So if I tell him to do something the first time, he don't do it, and there's no consequence for it, I'm training him to ignore me, like the first time I tell him. So somewhere in there, I say, man, that's my bad, because if I had been a little tougher on you when you didn't take the garbage out when you were 6 or 7 or 8, then you'd have took it out now.
But you know what's so great about that, and you know, I was an only child, so this is probably one of the hardest things for me to get through, right? But what I'm noticing now is the culture that accepting that role brings about, right? Because as I'm in a position where I'm constantly searching myself and taking on that mindset of, no, that's on me. Like correct me if I'm wrong, that's almost all you hear from me now. Right. But so what that does culture wise is I've noticed that now Caitlin is more apt to search herself.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Because she's seeing that that's what I'm doing. Right. But that's not only going to carry down just to Caitlin, but now the children are going to start taking responsibility and understanding the role they played in the situation, which is huge. Right. So I don't want it to be missed or understated. It would, like, the culture that develops is probably the most impactful part of accepting that designation.
And here's what's important about what you just said too, because the way God set it up, seeds reproduce after their own kind.
Yeah.
If you understand your role as an initiator, but compound that with understanding her role as a multiplier,
Yeah.
she's gonna multiply what you give her.
Yep.
Right? You multiply taking responsibility. You so taking responsibility, she's gonna multiply for you. Yeah. You so not taking responsibility, she's gonna multiply
it too. Yeah.
Right? Like that's how God set it up. Now that don't mean she can break that. Don't get me wrong. But the multiplication of that process, like she's gonna have to stop it. She's gonna have to work to stop it.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing things to be. So when we see that her role is to multiply what I put out in what I established in the culture, I shouldn't even say I want to say her role. It's by default, right? If I'm establishing the culture of love, and one of the characteristics of establishing the culture of love is me taking the responsibility for being the initiator and whatever happens in my home to examine me first, then by default she'll multiply it. Right? By default, it'll be multiplied. If it's something that I'm putting in the culture that I shouldn't be putting in the culture, she's going to have to take herself off default in order not to multiply that.
Right.
Is how I want to communicate that. Because she can stop the bad things you put in the culture, or vice versa. So, but the initiator is one of the things that it's hard, man, because man, she doing this, she doing that. But wait, son, wait, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I'll deal with her later. What are you doing? You're the initiator. You initiate the culture for that.
Yeah.
And that's a mean thing, because some brothers, they want to push it off. Like, they don't want to take that responsibility of saying, man, I initiated this culture, and this culture was caused her to think this way.
And most of the time they've learned or they're still operating out of the dead man mindset where everything is, 50-50. Well, she's supposed to give and I'm supposed to give back. And they don't what they're really saying.
Hey, what's up, fam? I want to thank you first of all for watching our podcast. Now, secondly, I want to give you some information that is very important. I was recently talking to a couple, and as we were assessing their marital situation, they came to the conclusion that the problem that they were dealing with was because they hadn't laid the proper foundation to build the marriage that they wanted to build. I said, that's exactly right, and I have a solution for you. We put together a marriage mastery curriculum that establishes a foundation that will enable you to build the marriage you desire. We talk about things as far as your identity as a lover. We talk about how to build a culture of love. We talk about heroic husbandry. We talk about wondrous wifery. We talk about edifying communication. We talk about grace-filled communication. We cover so much in this curriculum that it's going to put you on the path to be marriage masters. Now, what I need you to do is click the link in the description. This is going to give you some more insight in just how you can enroll right now into our course. If you are newlywed, if you just engaged, if you recently married, this is a great course for you. You need to check it out. We got a great price for you. We got a payment plan that you can enroll in. So go now, click the link below and get more information. And I'll see you in our Marriage Masters University.
saying is I'm choosing to love because of. That's what they're saying.
Right. See, we don't really believe. We can talk all the talk we want. I'm talking about from the archbishop of somebody's denomination down to the man in the back of the church. We don't really believe we can love our wives like Christ loved the church. You don't really believe that. Like, if you really believe that, if you really believe that what you just described, that stuff wouldn't be happening.
But who's teaching them that they're capable of doing that? Because that's the biggest thing. Like, religion takes the power
I can't
away.
speak for nobody else. I know what we teaching folks.
Well, right.
We are.
I know we teaching folks.
I mean, I was trying to give you. I was trying to give you open.
I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And I won't come back and take that door. A lot of folk ain't. They teaching them old man love.
Right.
Because we don't even know new man love. We don't even. I mean, I get it. I mean, I hate to. I'm not a church, because I love God's church. I love God's people. But as Jesus was, I'm hard on leaders that's not leading properly, right? I think it was Jeremiah might have been. He says, "They that lead thee cause thee to error," right? It's the leadership that's causing it's those who are leading husbands into faulty and deficient husbandry that's causing the divorce culture to be what it is in the church. I mean, we're competing with the world for our divorce rate, and it just shouldn't be that way. But we're not practicing faith-based husbandry, nor are we practicing faith-based wifery. Why? Because we haven't heard it. If we haven't heard it, we can't believe it. If we can't believe it, we can't speak it. If we don't speak it, we can't possess it. And so we have to talk faith-based husbandry. That's what it is. We have to talk. Part of faith-based husbandry is accepting the role as an initiator, as a servant leader, and leading your spouse into oneness. Those are the three areas that we've highlighted as servant leader. I mean, as accepting your responsibilities as a initiator, and one who expresses their love through servanthood, right? And one way we can describe that is, my goal is to make Leslie's life as easy as possible. Same thing Jesus did. Like I told y'all, we've been saying this stuff for the last couple of weeks. I don't want to put that on her, but there was a time when she was very skeptical about things. Right?
Right.
And if it sounded too good to be true,
It probably wasn't.
it wasn't true in her mind.
Right.
But it's actually the opposite in the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
If it don't sound too good to be true, watch out. But if it sounds too good to be true,
Believe
it's
it.
true.
That's right.
That's how good our salvation is, right? If it sounds too easy to be true, from the kingdom of God's perspective, it's true. Now, from the world, it's different.
Yeah.
But Jesus made this thing so easy for his bride. How hard did Adam have to work for anything?
I know.
Like, that's the mindset of a husband, a servant leader. What characterizes a servant leader is I want to serve you into an easy and burden-free life.
Right.
That's my role as a husband, is to make it as easy as for you as possible. So when we talk about servant leader, that's how we characterize that. And then lastly, oneness is like that's the ultimate goal for marriage, is for us to come. It's the husband's responsibility to lead his wife and to take the initiative and initiate processes within the culture that lead them to a point of oneness. And when we're talking about oneness, we're talking about believing the same, thinking the same, speaking the same, desiring the same things, loving the same way. We're talking about those things, and it just goes from there. So that would be number 5.
Yeah.
Do we have time for number 6?
You tell me. Do we have time for number 6? Can you get it in these last few minutes?
Well, I mean, I can do the best I can.
Okay, let's do the best you can. Number 6, modeling faith-based husbandry.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one, because the model that we got for faith-based husbandry was Jesus himself. Right? That's the model. And when we look at it, we got to look at it from his arrival. No, we can even look at it from his inception to his departure. He modeled husbandry, because his whole purpose was for the church. His whole purpose for coming was manifesting the new man once again. Like so from Philippians, when the Bible says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being God, not thought robbery to be, who being God thought not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. Took upon himself the form of a servant and was found in the likeness of man. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself. And he became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. He humbled himself.
Right.
And because he humbled himself, God highly exalted him and had given him a seat, given him a seat at the right hand of the Master on high. Right? So when we think about that, the humility of husbandry, the humility of and here's what it is. It's humility. Humility is thinking about you the way God thinks about you. Pride is thinking about you the way you want to think about you. But true humility is taking up what God says about me and laying aside what I say about me. Right? And so we got to know what God says about the new man, not the old man. We know what God thinks about the old man. He was worthy of one thing, and that was crucifixion, that was death. New man is worthy of everything. He's worthy of everything. New man is worthy of everything. So Jesus modeled husbandry from the humility of husbandry to the exaltation of husbandry, right? And so once we see that, and once we trace his life, and we see that husbands are called to humble themselves and to serve and do the things, position his spouse in a position to where she's able to be all that she's called to be, right? Like that's the true model of husbandry, to where I humble myself so that my wife feels loved. She knows my love. She feels equipped. She feels supported. She knows that she's supported, right? I humble myself so that she doesn't feel like I'm domineering, I'm dominating over her, right? I love the culture that Leslie and I that I initiated and Leslie multiplied, to where like there's a level of comfortability in most areas, I would say, Sister Leslie, where she can say, like, I mean, you'd have to tell me if there's an area where she don't feel like she can like, not that she wants to do this, not that she does this, but she can like bark stuff out and like, and we laugh about it, right? We laugh about it. So but that's the culture we've created. Now, again, we're 28 years in, right? So but that's the culture we've established, and the liberty and the freedom to be able to share things with her and say, like, there's times where I have to say, well, you ain't have to say it like that, because she was very gentle about it. You can say it with some boldness, but she takes the position of, no, I didn't want to say it like that. I wanted to say it like this, but that's what we have. But that's come through us establishing it, and now we're able to compress time for so many other couples by sharing with them the secrets we've discovered, such as modeling faith-based husbandry and loving like Christ loved the church from his humility to his resurrection. Like, if you humble yourself as a husband, the wife will resurrect you. She'll exalt you. What did they say? The Proverbs 31 wife, they says about her husband, he's esteemed, he's exalted at the gates, right? And that's because wife walk around talking about him like he the best thing since sliced bread. Wife walk around talking about him, bragging about him, talking about him, how good he is, how nice he is, how great he is, what he do for her, what she she brags about him, she talks about him. So he's esteemed in the streets, he's esteemed at the gates, right? If you humble yourself as a husband, then wife will exalt you. But that's something that we got to be hearing. We got to be hearing. So that's just in a nutshell. Jesus modeled that. He modeled humility, but it ended in his resurrection and his exaltation.
Right. Well, we did good.
Yeah, we did good.
You did exactly what we said we were going to do. We got through 4 through 6, and we will get through 7 and 10. 7 through 10 next time. We're going to get all 4 of them in.
For sure.
Yes. So all the links will be put below to the part 1 and part 2 of 10 Secrets to Being a Better Husband. And anything else before we go?
Buy the book. What Love Is.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. What Love Is. You
What
gotta
Love
get that.
Is.
Yeah.
Well, that will also be linked down there. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will see you next week.